Hello, Internet. My name is the Golden Staphos, and today we're going to talk about Metroid Fusion, which is a weird one to talk about because, you know, story wise, it might be one of the worst, or, well, second worst, right behind its unofficial remake. Um, but gameplay wise, it's phenomenal. There's a really great difficulty curve. The progression of the upgrades you get is very solid. The number of upgrades is insane. There's all kinds of new stuff. Tons of stuff from older games is refined. Um, you just get this like very solid progression. The upgrade system itself, the menu thing, is overhauled. There's a new map. You know, like basically every gameplay feature from the 2D series is brought up to the next level in Fusion. And that's why that engine was replicated for AM2R, the best 2D Metroid. And, you know, and seeing what AM2R was able to do with a very similar structure just makes me think, man, how much better could Fusion have been? You know? Because the gameplay and the mechanics are next level, and so is the atmosphere. I mean, this game really makes you feel alone and trapped in a dark, scary spaceship full of monsters that will eat you, because that's exactly what's happening. Um, and they really lean into it. The music direction is incredible as always. The the lighting, the visual effects, everything. Like it's a 2D game. It's a Game Boy game. But looking at the screen when the X Parasite comes in, and, oh god, like I mean not the generic X Parasites, the one that looks like you. Um, that thing is fucking terrifying, man. And the way it chases you around and it can scan through shit and it's all dark and you just have to. Oh man, that fucking that gets you every fucking time, man. And so like it's got great atmosphere, it's got great tension, it's got great gameplay. The mechanics are really next level for the series, but it's really linear and it's weirdly story driven for a game that has no dialogue. Like they they decided that that your ship should be named after a former commander, and of course you're in the and every time you finish a mission section, just like basically beat a level, uh, you have to ride this elevator up and listen to the and look at this long ass screen of the ship talking to you, and you reminiscing about your past. And like on the one hand it's kind of cool to get more information about Samus because her backstory is very like simple and a little bit vague. Like, oh yeah, as a baby, space pirates working with Ridley just like destroyed my whole planet. Then I got picked up by the Chozo, and they turned me into a super bird warrior, and then I started murdering everything in the universe. Um, like that's her backstory, I guess. Um, but in Fusion, we get a lot more detail on that process. We get to know that she was previously in the Federation, that she had a commander that she cared about, that she, you know, left under less than ideal circumstances, And we get to see how all of this, murdering and being alone in a world full of monsters and having no human contact is kind of fucking with her mind. And how she questions her role in the world. I mean, this is canonically her fourth outing, and you know, in each of her 3 previous outings, she destroyed a fucking planet. Um, I mean, I guess technically the first planet wasn't destroyed because she went back to it, but it looked like it was destroyed, so, whatever. In any case, like, she just feels fucked up about all the shit she's had to do. And, now with the whole thing with the X parasite and the metroid DNA and all that, she has to wonder if it was really ever her place to do any of that stuff. If her, destroying entire ecosystems is maybe fucking things up a bit. And that's kind of an interesting angle to explore, honestly. But it's a weird divergence for the series. Like, you know, the series where you just go in and kill all the monsters and blow the planet up and leave. Like, having this weird divergent side story where you're just in a small spaceship and, instead of instead of just like nuking it from orbit, you have to do all this bullshit. And I mean, you're still just committing genocide against the X-Parasite. So what's with this whole moral dilemma thing and all of this like self-reflection shit? It's just like, it's interesting, but it also gets in the way of the gameplay, and the gameplay is really good. And it also means that the story has to be super linear, which isn't like the series' strong point. I mean, most of the games are to a certain extent linear, but allow a lot of backtracking. But coming off the heels of Super Metroid, which allowed a lot of sequence breaks as well, Fusion feels like a weird direction to go in, and it's just very conflicted, and like, if it was just Fusion that was like this, it'd be a lot easier to say that the game is good and you should just play it, because like, it is worth playing, but the story elements that it brings in are fuel for Other M, and Other M is not worth playing. I mean, I have played it, and I might end up playing it again to get footage for this series, but, I actually don't know if I still have a copy or not. My library of Wii games has been overturned a couple of times since that game came out, so I may not still have the copy. But we'll find out. Anyway, the point is that Fusion on its own is a worthwhile gameplay experience, but a little bit bloated and weird in the story department, especially for a series that previously had no story. But the games that it inspired are bad in gameplay and in story, and that makes it hard to recommend. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, and it's weird. Also, technically, with the canon of the story, the events of the 2D games happen closest to the present, I guess you would say. So Fusion is canonically like the last game in the Metroid timeline. Which is a little bit odd, but oh well. And actually, honestly, that confuses me because Prime seems to include things that would have involved some of the previous games. Like Ridley shows up, but but he couldn't do that if the events. But like the first four games follow a very strict 1, 2, 3, 4 pattern with their story, and there's not really room for anything else to happen in between. Like, I suppose there is room between Metroid 1 and 2 because those don't tie in at all. But 2, 3, and 4, or 2, Super, and Fusion, all tie in directly. At the end of Metroid 2, you rescue the baby and take it to the research facility. Then the research facility gets attacked at the beginning of Super Metroid. Then, you make it off the planet with your, I guess, with the baby's remains. And you get to the research facility where they splice in the remaining Metroid DNA so that you can become a weapon against the X parasite that is about to kill them all at the beginning of Fusion, right? So, like, there's no space in between those games in which another game can slot in, let alone a trilogy or quadrilogy, as it is going to become eventually, maybe. So, yeah. I don't know what's up with the timeline stuff, but it's a little wonked. But in any case, that's not really that important. What's important is that Fusion is a fun experience the first time and a little bit tedious after that because of all the story elements. So play it at least once for the gameplay, and yeah, I mean it's good, to a certain extent. I mean the atmosphere is great, the music, the visuals, the gameplay controls are good, the upgrades are fun. You get to do a lot of good stuff with it. It's just, when you replay it, having to go through the exact plot, up and down and back and forth exactly as the spaceship tells you to, is dumb, boring, and it gets old. And but I mean, you don't necessarily notice that on your first playthrough. And there is some interesting stuff in the lore. It's just, it's hard to balance providing interesting information and providing replayability. So, yeah. I mean, I think there are games that do that. Resident Evil 4 is endlessly replayable and it's very story focused. But that's because it has skippable cutscenes and characters that are interesting enough to listen to that sometimes you don't want to skip the cutscenes because it's just so fucking hilarious. And the gameplay gets more advanced when you replay. You get access to new guns, you get to challenge yourself, that kind of thing. But that's not the case in a Metroid game. That's not how Metroid rolls. So it's not really super replayable. But it's worth a first playthrough at least. So if you haven't done it, I recommend it. Go out and get yourself an old Game Boy. They're not that expensive. So yeah, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next life. Laters. Okay, end card time. I'm supposed to tell you to like, comment, subscribe, all that stupid YouTube shit. There's a bell thingy, whatever. I have all the social media stuff: Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. Mostly I use Facebook and Twitter to tell you about my Twitch and YouTube uploads. I've got a Patreon, but Patreon is one of those things where people who can afford to throw away money give money to people who can't. Um, and so if you can't afford to throw away money, then you shouldn't be doing that. And if you can afford to throw away money, consider charities. There's a pandemic, there's global warming, there's millions of people in the world who don't have toilets, which is just awful. So I've linked a few charities in the description down below in case you're interested in that. And if you can't donate money to a charity, consider donating some of your time, because that's also very useful. And yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.